Apple has their presentation today with the iPad, correct? Good morning and welcome to Unusual Activity powered by Financial Juice with George Avedon and Milton Marmonides. Thank you for joining us this morning. Lots of economic activity overnight and into this morning. We'll take a quick check of futures. Certainly, initial claims coming out right now. We have initial claims at 264,000 versus the expected 290,000. So again, this is U.S. jobless claims 4-week average lowest since June of 2000. It's a continuing claims at 2.389 million versus the expected at 2.380. So pretty close on the continuing claims. So getting into the futures, we are a risk off this morning again, down 18.5, close to the lows of the day at 1828.25. Again, down 18.75 on the S&P futures. At 1828.75. Let's have a quick recap of yesterday's activity. Certainly we saw a rather volatile day yesterday, and we'll get into the specifics, perhaps what that means coming into today. Dow Jones was down 1.06% at 16,141.74. S&P 500 at 1862.49, down 0.81%. Nasdaq down 0.28% at 4215.32. We had a big risk off trade in the morning. Continued weakness for, I would say, good first part of the trading day, and we saw a considerable rebound off of that 1820 level in the SPX right into the close, and certainly after the close, we also saw some activity in some of these notable stocks, as in Netflix. So let's continue with the macro environment and geopolitical. Certainly, there's continued concern with respect to containing ISIL, with just airstrikes over Syria, certainly in Iraq as well. Now, something to keep in mind with that, remember, we're going into a midterm election cycle in the U.S., and the thought of putting boots on the ground forces in a larger capacity, remember that's a political thing, so we really have to keep that in mind. Continued conversations considered discussions about the Russian economy. Certainly they're putting a lot of money into the ruble. Ruble's been at lows recently, so really keeping an eye on that. And we have been hearing that, been reading that this prospective relationship with Russia and China, and how that comes out. Remember, this is with respect to just about everything, every piece of the economy, with respect to raw materials, energy, trade. So that should be a really interesting perspective there. So this morning, we've had the jobless claims. Actual was 264,000. Expected was 290. We do have POMO this morning at 0.15 to 0.25 billion. That's this morning. We're also anticipating industrial productions at 9:15, Philadelphia Fed at 10, housing market index at 10. We have two energy reports, one at 10:30. That's the natural gas, petroleum today as well as 11. Remember, there was that Columbus Day holiday Monday, so that's a bit delayed there. So that's at 11. Certainly, that's should have at least some impact in terms of where we are on the stockpile. Certainly, we've seen a massive volatility in commodities and energy, so we'll continue to watch that. Also, 3 and 6 month T-bills and 30-year Treasury inflation protected securities auction results at 11. We have several speakers today, certainly 8 a.m. this morning, and also in the afternoon we have continued speaking. Now, this is on the heels of, as we've been saying, this continued nervousness about the global perspective, global economic downturn, and really should that happen, should the global economy, Europe, Asia, uh, come into a recession, uh, can the U.S. sustain a bit of growth, and or will we see that come into the U.S., or can we see that decoupling from the global economies? And that's certainly on the minds of Fed speakers, and the rate hikes and when to begin them, and so forth. So also Treasury, International Capital at 4 p.m. Fed balance sheet at 4:30, money supply at 4:30. Also this morning, we get another Baltic Dry Index, falls again 0.5% to 930 points. Really seeing this decline in that index every day. A check of the markets in Asia overnight. Nikkei was down 2.22%. Hang Seng was down 1.03%, and the Shanghai index was down 0.72. A check on Europe. Um, in Europe is FTSE down 1.5%. This is lower than earlier in the trading session. CAC in Paris is down 1.73, just around where it was earlier, and DAX down 1.29% at 8461.09. So again, really seeing the continuation of weakness in the market. A couple of global economic information out there. Japanese industrial production down 3.3%. The conversation here is are central bankers running out of bullets? You know, should we enter another recession, or how will the central bankers respond? What mechanisms do they have in place um, to combat that? So the other piece of this drop in energy commodities is this effect on consumer demand. Remember, as oil drops, certainly discretionary income, discretionary spending will be on other products, and that's the thought process. So Citi came out with a number that this particular recent drop, specifically in oil, it could be could direct approximately $1.1 trillion annually into other consumer products, if you will. So again, something to look out for. Taking a look at the commodities, energy, raw materials. Crude oil currently at $80.32, down $1.48, let's call it. Really holding on to that 80 level. I believe we dipped below that level just briefly, now back up above. The gasoline down 0.0071, 2.1416. Natural gas up 0.017 at 3.817. Heating oil at down 0.0264 at 2.4322. COMEX gold at 1240.60 this morning, down 420. COMEX silver 1743, down 3 pennies, and platinum at 1244.87, down 1701. Cocoa at 31.17, down $36. Again, reason why we bring up cocoa, a lot of the cocoa producers are in the Western Africa regions, and of course that's the Ebola concern there. So that could have an impact on things. Taking a look at the 10-year, we have the 10-year at 2.040. It did dip below 2% yesterday. It bounced off that, and it did dip below 2% this morning as well. We have the 30-year yield at 2.78%. Certainly, no, if you're just gauging the 10-year and the 30-year with respect to inflation, there's really no hint of it there, or little hint of it, excuse me. And of course, this conversation is the U.S. A safety is in terms of treasuries and so forth. So that's something to keep an eye on as well. Before we get into the Ebola conversation that's been happening, let's run through yesterday's day. I thought yesterday's day was really pivotal with respect to, you had these huge downtrends and really good, decent buying in the afternoon. What's your take on that? I mean, it's a bit of a kind of a neurotic market, don't you think?
Yesterday we had, a lot of people mention the word capitulation. They were saying that yesterday's action was true capitulation in this market, where if people don't really know what capitulation means, is, it's the extreme volatility, high volume, and extreme sharp declines, coinciding to the fact that people are dumping their shares because they are giving up. So in all reality, yesterday people were talking throughout the entire day. Yesterday was capitulation. Yesterday was the day of the bottom. Today we're waking up and the futures are down again at another 27 to 30 handles. So in reality, yesterday was not capitulation. Today, you're having a lot of negativity. You're having extreme negativity in Europe. You're having extreme negativity with this Ebola. Every other headline is an Ebola scare. The media is making this seem like it's the end of the world if this thing is out of control. It's right now we are in that fear area in the markets, fear area with, the volatility hitting $31, hitting that resistance level yesterday, extreme level of resistance at $31 to $32. We're watching that level very closely. I wanted to go over really quickly regarding Greece. I'm just going to jump off topic.
No, please, go ahead.
Excuse me. We made some contacts in Greece, and I was trying to get a feel of exactly what's going on over there. And it seems like a lot of people really don't understand the repercussions of what's really happening in Greece. Sorry again. We have, like I mentioned yesterday, we have this group called the Syriza, which is the government, the extreme left. I mentioned it was the right yesterday. I meant to say it was the extreme left, the radical left. These guys are completely anti-Europe. They want Greece out of the Euro, out of the EU. They want Greece an independent country. Syriza right now has gained extreme support in the past few months against the current government, the New Democracy under Samaras. And the feel right now is if these guys win and Tsipras is able to get an earlier election and become the leader of Greece, the feel is very, very negative. The impact of that happening and Greece leaving the euro could be a tremendous contagion effect in that whole area. And the behind the sidelines, the amount of money that is invested in Greece through Europe, through hedge fund managers investing, was in the past 6 months, George, there was over 5 or 10 top hedge funds throwing money into the Greek banks because they believed it was the bottom. They believe that they have, turned around and are going to start, you know, getting out of this little doldrum they're in. But has taken a complete reversal, and people are getting destroyed out there. No one really knows the exact feel of what's actually happening in Greece. And that is where people have to sit back and think to themselves, what if? Everyone threw that out the window for the past year and a half, and the market just moved higher and higher, no worries, no problems. What if something like that happens? And I think we're starting to see that in the market right now. There's a lot of going on in Greece. Many people throw it away because it's a small country that does nothing, but people don't understand the effect it could have if they leave the euro.
Correct.
It could be an issue that could escalate to France, to Spain, to Italy, and then it's all over on that aspect. So people have to watch that.
I think you're right, Mill. I think there's a renewed, for a time, I remember during the crisis, and you and I were fortunate enough to be, in the industry for a while, even before the crisis, and really experience the crisis firsthand and understand. It feels like there is a renewed sensitivity
Yes.
around Greece and other countries with respect to the European Union. Remember, we mentioned the European Union. Historically, the objective of the European Union is to stay European Union, right? The gentleman won the Nobel Peace Prize for that, or
Their main thing,
economic, right?
George, is to keep that running.
Correct. Correct.
No one wants, especially Germany, does not want that to break up. You want to see it happen, and in all reality, this could be brushed under the carpet again. But as of now, the feel on this is that the headline risk is back into play. Anything that comes out of Greece, anything that comes out regarding Ebola, anything that they're starting to mention the word deflation now across the boards in every country. They're going to be like Japan. Every headline is twisted to be negative. We had good initial claims this morning. Those numbers came out. Everyone's talking, oh, no. Now that we're not going to have any QE4 because of the initial claims numbers are good. So everything is being twisted to the fact of it's good, it's bad, it doesn't matter. Right now, everything is bad.
Correct.
Goldman Sachs had some decent numbers, it's bad.
Right.
Netflix came out with a bad number. They smack it 30%, down $100. Where do you see that? That's the mentality right now, and you have to be careful.
And Mills, here's a question for you. So one of the things that we're seeing is this notion of, one of the things that came through overnight was, and even yesterday, there was a rather large fund that was, quote unquote, I'm gonna, that there was a large fund that was getting out of equities and getting into treasuries.
Yes.
Okay. So
There were a lot yesterday, George. A lot of those rumors are coming around. There was also rumors about some energy funds blowing up. It was across the board. That spike we had down that dropped the markets down 400 plus points. Rumors started coming up across the board that big funds had to liquidate. Margin calls are going insane. People just, the futures pits there were worries that there was a nonstop seller in the pits. It seemed like yesterday was initially starting to get that capitulation feel. But in all reality, typical capitulation, you don't have such a hard, vicious rally. You want to see a nice, consistent upswing rally throughout the day and a very strong close. Then you can think to yourself, okay, the fear is gone. We had that nice capitulation bottom. The VIX exploded, but we didn't have that yesterday. We had a sharp spike to the upside, back down to new lows, another spike up, and into the close we had some selling. It wasn't ideal capitulation. You want to see a day like today where the market opens it down, it gaps down again, you have a continued buying across the board, and with a strong close. And then you can think to yourself, okay, maybe we did hit that capitulation bottom. Maybe we have seen that short-term ability to be like, you know what, we can go back into this market. But until you see that, Until you see a mindset change, you have to be consistent. You have to understand that this no one's going to beat this market. You may think you can beat it, but in the end, it's going to beat you and it's going to win. And that's where you have to know when you're going to win the fight, join the fight, or stay away from the fight.
Absolutely. We actually have and thanks folks for listening. We actually have an audience question. The question here is Greece is relatively a smaller economy in the European Union, right? Um, Thoughts on Spain, Italy? I mean, do you think that the sensitivity in in the in macroeconomic terms, do you think this sensitivity will carry through the Spanish economies, Italian economies? What's your thought on that?
I believe, I think it's going to happen. If look what happened last time this whole Greece mess was in the news. It was Greece, then it was Italy, then it was France, and it was Spain again, Portugal. No one even mentions Portugal anymore. No one mentions Spain. No one mentions any of these. We're slowly starting to hear about the the Italian government, and the EU rejecting their budget. They don't like what they're doing over there. You're slowly starting to see that. You're slowly starting to see France getting into the news again. Like I said, Greece is, in my opinion, in the UI, it's a meaningless small country. But what people don't understand is the contagion effect that could occur with that could be tremendous. If Greece is done, then everyone will jump into France or Italy, and if that happens, what can you say? You have to use common sense at that point. Think to yourself, you know, France is what, George? They're the second largest in
Correct.
Europe. If France is out, if France decides, what, we can't do this anymore, the game's over. What can you possibly do? But all I know is right now, Greece is in the news. Their bonds are exploding. Something is just not right there. And like I mentioned earlier, you have to keep an eye on that Syriza party. If they start to garner more and more interest and more power, and have the ability to get early elections, and at this point, through every poll that I've read, through every phone call I've made to Greece, they will win. And if that happens, then we're going to see some problems. But they will try to contain it. Europe is going to do whatever they can to keep Greece happy and try to contain it and try to make sure that this does not become that disastrous effect.
And we want to thank Hugo for that question. We're going to, as we're monitoring the newsroom as questions come up, we'll continue to answer them as quickly as we can as we go through this through the presentation. One of the things that we wanted to bring up is one of a trader really asked a great question yesterday. Was this notion of I want to phrase it the right way. So when you're having when you're at the top of a particular market, let's say we were excuse me, when we were high of the S&P 500, there were folks that were beginning to be short, correct? So as the market begins to come down, if you will, from those highs, those shorts are certainly keeping an eye on those levels. One of the things that a trader asked us yesterday is why sometimes markets have this really wild tick up. The answer that we had a conversation with him about was it's the short coverings, correct? It's that proverbial short squeeze in the markets. What's your take on that? How can a trader monitor that a little bit better as we have these really volatile markets?
That's a very good question, George. You're in a time right now where there is no real answer. The market dropped. It was a vicious drop in the morning, and then we had such a sharp rally. It was like a 30 handle pop in 5 minutes.
Correct.
Could be short selling. Could be the fact that people thought that was the bottom. That was the fear that they were waiting for. The reason, the answer, there is really no answer at that point. You know, until you see a consistency of mentality shifting back into the net neutrality or a slight more comfortable scenario, you really cannot jump into this market yet. You have to be, you have to, like we've mentioned for weeks, to be cautious in this market, George.
Yes.
Weeks,
Yes.
because the mentality has shifted. It's
Correct.
no longer of buying the dips. Right now, it's selling the rips. And right now, you have to sit back and see exactly what you're in, what you're buying, and make sure you have your exits just in case something happens. Right now the mentality is negative. Right now the trading mechanisms are to the downside. Until that changes, it could happen in a day. If you have true capitulation, it could happen in a day. But until that happens, you really have to sit back and wait it out if you can. And at that point, George, I believe you will have an ability to be buying certain names at such discounted prices. You'll be buying the banks, what the banks were in 2007 and 8. You'll be buying stocks at these levels, certain stocks, and be able to make a killing. But you have to wait. You have to wait. We have to wait and see until that happens. You have to just be able to stay alive.
Correct. And in this notion of being able to absolutely uh, time the tops and time the bottoms, I don't mean to be so generic here, but it's sometimes a little patience will prove you right. Milt, we had a question out there in the newsroom, and as I'm going through the other things, if there's any news on INO. So as I'm gonna just run through some of the things that we've been seeing in the Ebola names. Certainly, INO was in the Ebola stock list. Certainly, in Ebola, we had certainly so Spain, right? Lots of conversation coming out, lots of rumors. So really being careful on what it all means. Even this morning, folks, there was as I'm checking all of our information, there was a health scare in Yale New Haven Hospital this morning when a man returned from a research trip from Africa was admitted to Yale New Haven Hospital. But again, we're going to continue. We're going to continue to see these types of information coming through the news wires, folks, and it's I think, Milt, and correct me if I'm wrong. I believe here's the main thing with Ebola that is providing so much fear. Not just the social aspect of, not just the humanitarian aspect, but the fact that I believe it's very difficult right now to quantify the effect on what Ebola can do economically to the markets and so forth. We just don't have those numbers, right? And I think that's
George, you have no idea. You
correct.
have,
Correct.
no one really knows what could possibly happen. Like I said, it could be, remember SARS? It could be like
Yes.
SARS when it was a disaster for like a month or so, then all of a
Correct.
sudden it was forgotten.
Correct.
But really, people do not understand what could possibly happen. You have the WHO coming out saying if it's not controlled within 60 days, we can see 10,000, was it a week or a month cases?
Yeah.
At that point, what can you say?
Yeah.
At that point, who knows what could possibly. If that happens, we'll discuss that down the road. Hopefully it never happens, knock on wood. But no one really understands or knows what could really happen if this does become a real issue. Right now, like I said, we have 2 cases in the U.S.
Correct.
It's as if we can see right now. Hopefully, everything is being controlled.
Right.
You're having a little problems here or there, but they're trying to fix the problem. If it does stop here, it could quell a lot of negative feel. But if it continues, and you have to watch that, if it continues, I don't think this volatility is going to end yet. You have a lot of fear, and Ebola is one of those things where it could be like we said 2 weeks ago, George.
Yeah.
It could be that black swan event,
It
and
is.
ever since
It
then,
is.
the market has just been collapsing.
It is.
So it could be that event, and it has to be something where you have to know it's controlled. If it's controlled and let's say 2 or 3 weeks from now we have no new cases in the U.S., then you may see that the fear starting to drift away. It'll be out of the media. It'll start drift away. Then you can be a little more a little more less cautious on that aspect of of what's going on right now.
Correct. Correct. And Aurelio, we hear you. We're looking. We're trying to find some
On INO,
INO. See if there's some.
from what I've checked, and I've made I've asked around a little bit. There's really no significant news on that this morning. It seems like it is, like we mentioned numerous times, it is an Ebola play.
Correct.
And we've had a lot of Ebola news this morning.
Correct.
With France and that airline and this and that. So possibly it's just being a momentum off that. But as of now, I see nothing on it. I see a couple very small trades, 100-share trades this morning on the name. Nothing extreme. It's up 15 cents pre-market with I think like 300 shares on those numbers. So as of now, I really do not see anything outside of a sympathy play off of Ebola.
Perfect. Thanks, and thanks really for the question. And folks, if you have something to play, certainly a lot of activity out there in the markets. We'll do our best to find some concrete information to pass on along with you. Just coming through the wires this morning. Is GPS Gap reports $500 million buyback plan. Folks, we brought this up yesterday. The fact that with the decline in the market, what a great opportunity for if particular public companies were looking to do buyback programs. What a great time to be even thinking about that. So again, this is not the first. Yesterday we had, correct me, we had Hewlett Packard. So again, we're going to.
You might start seeing a few buybacks at these levels. Interesting to see. You want to see buybacks and you want to see insider buying here. If you can see that, then at that point, you can think to yourself, okay, maybe that specific stock, the company sees the value there, or the officers see value at that level. But the weird thing is, you're really not seeing a lot of insider buying it, George. Which is a little interesting. Yeah. Maybe they're not going to. They don't have their plan to do it yet, but we really haven't had that much. Nothing crazy.
Absolutely right. There's nothing cataclysmic, but again, we're keeping an eye on that. As you see here, a few insider purchases this morning, or overnight, if you will. CN, SIEN, Sienna, 5,014.31. RIT, Chief Operating Officer, purchases 7,000. Nothing yet this morning. BAMM. This book's $1 million. Nothing yet this morning in terms of activity based on that. Books $1 million purchased just over $1 million at $1.56. So again, we'll see if that carries through into the open, if you're into the trading. DVN, Devon Energy, director purchases a little over 9,000 shares at 54.64. Seeing an indication at 54.02. ARWR, CEO purchases 16,000 shares at 632. IVAC, we have director purchases 20,000 shares at 688. AVNW, 10% owner purchases 111,000 shares at $1.78. Certainly another low price stock. OHAI, purchasing 21,000 shares at $6.02. LGND, director purchases 2,000 shares, currently indicating at 46 even. CALA, 10% owner, purchases 181,000 shares at $6.96. Let's see here. ENTG, we have 10% owner purchasing 164,000 shares. Folks, the reason that we bring this up, and we feel that it's important. We've been monitoring the importance of this. Sometimes you don't see a direct correlation in the pre-markets, but really keep an eye on these stocks. And when some of these stocks, you have repeated directors, repeated CEOs, repeated 10% owners purchasing these particular securities. Put on your list. See what the intraday, slightly longer term perspective on these particular purchases. What's the effect on the security? Is there an analyst follow up with this? Is there something else that that may interest you? So carrying on here, we mentioned the buybacks. They begin to look a little bit more compelling in a lower priced market. So also coming out of Asia, luxury goods slowdown coming in specifically out of China. Keeping an eye on the Burberry, Louis Vuitton, MUL. So really keeping an eye on that. Again, we've discussed this several times, and this notion of uh, China comfortable with lower growth rates, not low growth rates, but lower growth rate. They still want to chug along at what is, I think IMF has them at 7.4. So again, really keeping an eye on that. If we take a look at BRBY this morning, uh, coming up. MUL this morning. Sorry, having a little tech difficulty here. Um, Lower. So again, one of the things that's coming in with airlines. Interesting scenario here, right? So we have a kind of two opposing forces here, right? We have the lower oil, so lower expenses for the airlines, right? Also, something with the airlines is this Ebola fear, and the impact on the travel agency. So you have this dichotomy in thought where yes, you have decreasing energy costs, so clearly hits the bottom line there, and two, you have the Ebola fear, so that's kind of interesting here. Also, OSUR, Canaccord confirmed OSUR is working on developing an Ebola test and is in talks with private sector entities and federal agencies. So OSUR, um, um, bear with me, folks. OSUR, just a slight technical difficulty. We're just going to take a minor break here. Okay, I think we're back. Sorry, folks. Currently at about $9.16. So that's OSUR. That's another Ebola play that we'll put that in the list. Couple of information. So politically, again, we're getting into this political season, midterm election in the U.S. According to Rand Paul, Obama is downplaying the Ebola threat. Uh, um, Dallas County may declare state of emergency, state of disaster from Ebola virus. What that means in the U.S., folks, if a state declares or a county declares a state of disaster, state of emergency, they can get funding. That's the core here. Okay, so if whether it's a state or a county, they can get access to funding both from a state level and a federal level. So that's really something to keep an eye on. Milton talked about the hedge fund managers betting on Greek banks. So again, let's see if their trade works. If the trade works, great. If they don't, we'll see some continued volatility with that. Um, let's continue. Charles Schwab, Deutsche Bank reiterates a buy at for Charles Schwab. Um, RH, we have Restoration Hardware initiate a buy at Deutsche Bank. Pacific Crest, they commenting on Netflix. They did adjust their price target to 490 from 530. Still have it outperform. Milt, what a swoon yesterday in after markets. Currently, is this right? We're currently pre-market is $331.
Yeah, George,
Wow.
it's been a very hard day for whoever owns Netflix this morning. Or if you're short Netflix, congratulations. But yeah, we were watching After Hours yesterday, and I just literally sat back in my chair, and I'm like, oh my God, look at this stock. It's just there's no words. You're down what 27, 28
20,
percent on
yeah,
a
yeah.
on a 20 what a $29 billion market cap company. It's quite shocking. It's that's what happens sometimes. Especially in a market right now where everything is bad. If you have bad numbers, expect to get slaughtered. So and clear example is right there, everybody.
Yeah. So again, continuing to take a look at that. American Express being mentioned. Let's see here. AXP still at a sector perform with Pacific Crest, I believe, currently um, pre-market about 80 $80.10. Um, NF. Um, so a few conversations, a little bit more macro. We looked at uh, are folks looking to there should be NF, not it should be HF, not A and NF. Excuse me. Hedge funds looking to unload shares into rallies. This is a conversation that's going around. We mentioned this, the larger fund possibly unloading equities and purchasing treasuries yesterday. Um, Folks, this may continue. This notion of selling into the rallies. So again, we also saw activity in Shire and ABBV. We'll see that if that continues this morning. Remember, GTAT has been delisted now, so that's a GTATQ for those GTAT fans. It's now on the pink sheets. Okay, so now we talked about technical. A couple of other things that's coming through. EXTR Extreme Networks is losing ground after first quarter outlook reduced. EXTR currently in down a pre-market. HCA raises 2014 outlook buoyed by better quarterly results. So keeping an eye on that. Iran, again, a little. We're gonna just pepper things in as we're beginning to see these as the market begins to prepare for the open. Iran not in favor of extending nuclear talks. That's the foreign minister. Associated Free Press. So iBio, this is another Ebola. iBio issues response to role in emergency response to Ebola, has offered to make proprietary technology to U.S. government. Again, so keeping an eye on that. We're going to continue to see, folks, this Ebola's not leaving, guys. Quick thing on Apple. We saw quite a bit of relative volatility in Apple yesterday. $95 is key. If we break that, could see 93.50 to 93.75. So again, Apple is roughly 3.2% of the S&P 500 mil. So it definitely has an impact on overall trading. Again, so folks, keeping an eye on that. Las Vegas Sands higher in pre-market. Third quarter better than feared, but not great. Analysts say again. Netflix, wow, what a crash! Not a crash, forgive me. What a swoon after earnings. eBay as well down. Am I right in saying Icon is a big stake in Netflix? Is that right? Or am I?
From what I recall, I know from what I recall, I think they sold a little bit. I know
Okay.
Icon wanted to sell the position.
Okay.
So last time that he was on, they even mentioned the fact on, I believe it was Fox Business News or somewhere like that, where they mentioned they asked Icon if he was still in
Correct.
on Netflix. I'm not. I don't want to say until I know for a fact.
Yeah.
But from what I know, he was in it, and I know he started selling. So I'm not sure exactly what his current position is.
Got it. Thank you. eBay down in pre-market, down Q3 beats, Q4 view misses, cuts rear view. Excuse me. We talked about American Express, BHI, Baker Hughes. Lower in pre-market quite a bit here by 11%, misses Q3 earnings. Mattel misses, I would say misses Street View on third quarter, down in pre-market. Yeah, I think we're seeing some negative. We're seeing quite a few misses. Are we not, Milt? Is and remember,
Yeah,
this is
George, I must say, as of now, from everything that we've been reading and seeing and earnings wise coming out, it seems like, yeah, we're getting a lot of bad earnings. And, everyone expected great earnings, everyone expected good earnings. So you have to think to yourself, you have Google in the after hours today. That's going to be, a market moving report. So you have to keep an eye on that. You have to keep an eye on the big names, see how they do, how they perform. We had a lot of the banks out already, and things, earnings wise have not been that rosy as of yet.
Thank you. So we just getting through, as you see up there, industrial production 1.0% versus the expected 0.4%. Previous 0 -0.1. So continuing, we see Goldman Sachs GS down in pre-market. They actually beat earnings, folks. We may see this negativity in the market carry through the reaction to the earnings. So just a bit of a caveat on that, right? It's kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, right? So let's have a bit of composure here as we approach the morning. And finally, we have a couple more here, folks. We have FITB down in pre-market. Fifth Third Bancorp misses Q3. INSY down in pre-market. FDA issues a refusal to file letter for the company's bronabidinol oral solution. So again, keeping an eye on that. And a few syndicates will put in the repository. We have TTPH sets a $75 million secondary, and RIG sets offering to raise $125 to $185 million offering. So again, keeping an eye on that. Folks, as we begin to wind down, we want to thank all the questions that are coming through. We're going to do our darndest to answer them quickly. And as we begin to, if we can find information for you folks, if there's something that you're looking for, please by all means, we're monitoring this newsroom, and we'll respond as quick as possible. Thank you for joining us. Let's take a quick check on markets as we begin to wrap up here. We have S&P futures down 1575 at 1830.50. Oil at still maintaining that 80 $50 $80.52 down $1.28. So really keeping an eye on that, folks. Watch these Ebola plays. We'll put everything up in the repository. We'll have a recap of and occasionally we'll put in just a for reference Ebola list that we're monitoring, not as a basket, folks, of whether you should sell short or go long, but really keeping an eye, creating a list for yourself, and really monitoring these securities. So, folks, thank you for joining us. This has been Unusual Activity, powered by Financial Juice with George Avedon and Milton Marmonides. Thank you for joining us, and happy hunting.